Welcome, everyone. I'm really grateful to be with you today, and it is a real honor to be again with Fiammetta Roccisano, who is an incredible, highly experienced curandera who's been working and living in Peru with ayahuasca for more than a decade, and it is such an honor for her to be with us again today. So some of you may have remembered that I did an interview with Fia about just over a year or so ago, and this is an extension of that conversation. We hope we're going to take you a little bit deeper with Fia's incredible knowledge and experience, and it's always such an honor to sit with her from my experience because there's always so much wisdom. So I know that you want to replay some of the sections ahead of time. I'm just preparing you. And he shared with us last time that plants are our elders, and that they've been around a lot longer than we have. And through ingesting them, we can make connection with them. And these words have stayed with me. And I also wanted to come back together to explore more deeply what this means for her, the medicine, and for us in these times. So today we'll be talking about ayahuasca's gifts and challenges, the role of ceremony and integration, and the wisdom that Fia carries with her from many, many years of guiding people throughout the world. So thank you, Fia, for once again being with us and opening your heart to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunny. I'm very happy to be here once again. So it's so nice and insightful to share conversation with you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'd like to start with what I just mentioned, which is you've shared before that plants are our elders. So they've been around a lot longer than we have, and that through ingesting them, we can make better connection with them. And I would love for you to speak more about this, please.
Yeah, beautiful. It's a great place to start. Thank you. Yeah, so through the lens of Amazonian shamanism, right? We understand that plants are conscious beings, just like we are. And their spirits exist, just like our spirits exist beyond the physical. And the creator gave the plants these plant bodies, just like the creator gave us these physical bodies to inhabit here in this 3D world. And the possibility of ingesting those plant bodies into our bodies is a really potent way where we can open up a direct access to have connection to these plant spirits. And certainly we can connect with, plant spirits and beyond, just the ingesting of them. But that really lives more in the ethereal, in the non-physical realm. But when we ingest a plant, whether it be for healing, to heal an ailment, or to enjoy a cup of tea, or to work with a plant teacher like ayahuasca, it's through the alchemy, of being able to bring the physical plant into the body with all of the properties that the creator gave to the physical body of the plant, and bringing it into our body that creates this access, and yeah, and so like I said, understanding that these spirits, the plants, they have existed here on Earth in this 3D world for much longer than we have. If we look back at the history of, the geographical history of the Earth, the plants were here first. And so there's kind of this understanding that the incarnation into this dimension, if you will, they were here first. They have more experience than we do. And when we can, move into a state of mind and a headspace of understanding things in this way, then we can see that they are really like our elders, or our big brothers, big sisters, and this is something that, yeah, like I said, it's really widely understood and known through firsthand experience by medicine people here in the Amazon, and I'm sure also in many other cultures where they work with the spiritual aspects of plants as well.
That's, yeah, okay, so that's really interesting. And so when you were saying, we ingest them and they can heal particular ailments, do you think that then they're a bit like doctors in a sense, like like
Absolutely.
plant doctors, like if that,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And in fact, in this sort of, plant medicine shamanic realm that we're part of here, um, we get to know these beings, through the dieta and through these sort of intensive practices that we go through with them. You build a connection, you form a connection with this being, with this spirit, and so it's almost like getting to know a person. They all have different characteristics and almost personality and energy and things like this, and so there are certain plants that really present as doctors, and we could take this conversation deeply into, a frame of mind of understanding that kind of thing. And we can understand that, when we drink ayahuasca and we move into the visionary space, sometimes we see them appear as doctors, or we might feel like we're in the hospital and we can see different work being done on the body, on the mind, on the energy. And so, it's beyond just a concept, really, and it's a firsthand experience that we have through this ancient tradition down here of working with plants in this way.
Wow. I mean, it sounds incredible. So I'm also curious then what your response would be to some people who might feel like that concept is a little far-fetched. What
Yeah.
what would you say in response to that, to those people?
Well, that's a good question. And at this point in my journey, um, I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. In a way, I'm here to share what I have experienced and the different, like, conocimientos and knowledge that has come my way through the dedication to this path over the last nearly 15 years, and so I would say that, if there's something in you, right? Because we're all intuitive beings in different ways. Some of us have that really opened up and others not so much, and so if there's something in you, when you hear that, you're like, oh, yeah, you can imagine that, then there's lots we can explore. If it's a hard no, then that's okay. I think that, like you and I have talked about before, it's like this work, it's really not for everybody. And these kinds of understandings, it's like we all have our time to come around to these kinds of things, and some people just don't vibe, and that's totally okay. That means there's another way and another path for them. And yeah, that's it. It's been something that has been really relevant in this last chapter here of life, is that, there's nothing to convince, there's nothing to defend. This is just what is here. That's the information and experience that's available through this world.
Lovely. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so for those people who do feel called then,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about what ayahuasca does and perhaps doesn't do for people?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a really good question, because as this medicine, and not only ayahuasca, but the other principal medicine I work with, tobacco and the dieta, excuse me, the master plants, the dieta plants that we work with, as they start to, like, expand more out into the Western world, um, I think for a lot of people, because really it's a whole worldview, it's a whole cosmovision of ancient understandings that, when you are born into a culture that is already, affluent in all of those understandings, it's kind of easy to understand these things. But when we have to translate it to a world or a culture where it's really far fetched, I think, yeah, it can be more difficult to understand. And so ultimately, I'm really glad to have these kinds of conversations, just to be able to sort of open up more understandings around what this medicine is, what it does, what it's not for, And so when we look at it in that way, like, for example, if somebody is suffering from, let's say, like a hernia or something like this. Traditionally here in the jungle, before there was Western medicine, they would have gone to a curandero, and the curandero would prescribe a plant, to heal that. And they would have put them into a dieta process to heal the hernia. They would not have given them ayahuasca, you know. And so it's like when we have that understanding of vegetalismo and curanderismo as a whole, like not just, curanderismo is not just ayahuasca here in the jungle. There's a whole pharmacy of plants and a whole world of knowledge of use of these plants for healing mind and body and spirit. And so there's a number of physical ailments that are not, ayahuasca is not the appropriate medicine for those kinds of things. Hernia is a good example. Or also, like, if somebody has like digestive issues or something like this, because ayahuasca is a purgative, it cleanses us, it works through the digestive system. Or if somebody has like a compromised like liver kidney function, ayahuasca wouldn't be the best medicine for that situation, because it gets processed through the liver and kidneys, so it could be too intense for those systems in the body. And then, if we want to look a step deeper, right? I think a lot of us know that a lot of illness and a lot of ailments also have a connection energetically or spiritually. And that's sort of the realm where, if and this is why it's important to work with someone that knows these kinds of things, that they can properly diagnose you. They can look at your situation and know what's appropriate and what's not, because if someone is physically able to drink ayahuasca, and they're having some strange symptom or something happening, the guide, whoever you're working with, is likely going to be able to sense where there's energy out of alignment, where there's a blockage, where there's stagnation. And ayahuasca can be an excellent medicine for treating the root cause of sometimes the physical manifestation. But yeah, truly, there's sort of a lot of things that have to be in place for that to happen. Because also, traditionally, if we're talking like even 50 years ago, 100 years ago, the individual wasn't the one to drink the medicine, right? It was the curandero, it was the shaman who would drink the medicine, journey through the spirit world, find the problem, and find the cure for the person. Now in the modern world, that has all changed, and we could talk a long time about why that is and how that happened and what that all means, but that's what is now. And so that's why I say, it's really important that the individual that's administering the medicine really can diagnose and sense into a person if it's appropriate for them to take this big journey with the medicine or not.
Because then if shamans aren't doing it anymore and then it's direct to the person, like ayahuasca is coming into the person for that healing. So
Mhm.
that's such a big deal. Like
Yes. Mhm.
now you're sharing that with me. It's like, wow, okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And I think if I could just speak to that for a
Yeah.
moment, you know, um, what I have seen and what I've experienced, and something that's sort of well known amongst this world that I'm a part of here, and these traditions and lineages, is that, you know again, like we said, the medicine is a conscious being. She can make her own choices, in a way. And so if we think of it in that way, I believe it really was her choice to come up and out of the jungle and reach people. Because at this time in our conscious evolution that we're going through, that humanity is going through, it's a very helpful medicine, for people to have direct access to, in that way, because so much has changed, in our reality. And also, I've had this conversation with my teacher many times. It's like curanderismo is also evolving. It's evolving with people. We are evolving, so our needs are evolving. And so how we practice, how we deliver this practice is also evolving, and it's a really delicate sort of thing, a dance between staying rooted in the tradition to ensure that, like, the proper things happen in the proper way, and also from that rooted place being able to like observe and see what are the ways that we need to adjust and open certain things up in different ways like this, and so I truly do believe that the medicine herself chose this for us, because we really, humanity is going through an enormous expansion and evolution of consciousness in these times, and it's miraculous and it's incredible, and I feel like the medicine was like, yes, now's my time, I'm coming up and out. let me
Yay!
let me step in here. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's amazing.
Hmm.
So, do you believe that ayahuasca can be done as a one-time experience? Like you mentioned before, like, she can go in and literally, heal some particular issues with the right guidance, and the
Mhm.
facilitator and that sort of thing. Or do you feel like there's a benefit of working with the medicine over time?
Yeah, it's also a good question. I think what I see is that every individual, just as we are all so unique, we also all have a unique recipe for healing, you know. And like we said before, this medicine is not for some people. Some people just can't. They don't want it and they don't aren't drawn to it, and that's absolutely fine. And within that, then there's also people that may come one time and receive what they need, and that's fine, and that's great. Um, for individuals that are called to return, that's also great, because we there are many, many, many layers to us, and we are complex creatures. And, it's like I believe we all come into life sort of with like a soul contract, a plan of like, what are we going to accomplish in this life? What do we want to learn? And each one of us is going to have a point where, like, hasta ahí, like to there, that's where we're going to get in this life. And that's great. And for some people, they have that one experience and it's like boom, at least with plant medicine or at least with ayahuasca, that's what they needed. For others, knowing that we're such layered and complex creatures, um, there is a lot to move through, and the journey to the healing journey, first and foremost, is a long one. Yeah, it's a long one. And then, beyond just the healing, like if we want to, because ayahuasca can also offer us the opportunity for self-mastery, and self-discovery. And that's also a really in-depth and sort of never-ending process, as it just goes as far as you'd like to take it, you know.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think that, I can speak for myself, like over the years, all of the different experiences that I've gone through, I'm still uncovering parts of self. I'm still moving through different layers of my own self. And, it's like if we look at any spiritual tradition, like we could imagine, like in the Hindu tradition, there's the idea of like enlightenment, which is like a self-realized being. I'm not there. I don't know many people that are like there fully, really,
Mm.
and so it's like there's a lot that we can continue to explore and refine in self. And it's just a matter of like, that inner knowing of each person, as far as like, because it's like, again, we all come in with a different contract and a different plan. And so, if you have your one experience, you receive an incredible healing, or whatever your experience is, and you feel at peace and you feel healthy and you're joyful through your life, then beautiful. That's the goal, and for some it's like that's it, and that's great. So yeah, I think it really varies a lot.
Mm. That's
Mm.
really beautiful, and to trust yourself with that process.
Mhm.
And I really like that. Thank you. So, also from your experience, what do you feel are the unique benefits of taking ayahuasca in a retreat container versus a single ceremony?
Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah. Well, like we've been saying, there's like different depths we can go to with this work. you know. And when you come to like one night of ceremony, you know, you're going to have your experience, but we also can imagine and understand that like there's a lot more. There's always a lot more. It's whether we want to go into it or not, right? It's like there's always more. And so when someone participates in a retreat, because you know when you come to like a weekend ceremony or just one ceremony, usually you're like in the town that you live in or pretty close to it, and it's like, you know, Monday morning you have to go right back to work, you know. And so it's like we dive into this beautiful journey and this process, and we go in within in our own interior world, and there's so much to be with and explore there, and then we finish and we have to jump right back into like everyday life and you know mundanity and the job and the responsibilities and the sort of fast paced world that we all live in, you know. And that you know, it's fine. It's not to say that there's no benefit from coming from one night or one weekend experience. It's just that when you come to a retreat or if you do a dieta, you're really creating the space for yourself to fully be with the experience, you know. And when we do this, then we realize that there's so much sometimes that we miss because we're thinking about the family, the job, the responsibilities. I got to do this, I got to do that. And it's like we miss things in that. That's normal. It's fine. You know, we all have to participate in life in the world. We all have responsibilities. That's fine, you know. But if it's like if somebody has a real calling to like create that space and to maximize the benefit of what's possible with the plant medicines, then either a retreat intensive or a dieta is the space to do that.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So, taking it a little bit on a different track from now is after so many years, do ceremonies still surprise you? Like, are they repetitive or, you know, boring, or is there always something new? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah. Oh, it's never boring. um, yeah, you know, there's always a wild card. There's always the potential for a wild card, you know. But also it's like after a certain amount of years of practice, it's like, you know, it's just to explain a bit, like it's when I step into the ceremony and I open the space, I kind of move into like an exalted state, right? Where I'm like, I'm wide open, you know? And so it's like whatever's come, it's, I guess surprise might not be the right word, but it's just like, you know, anything's possible in that space. And so part of what I do is being ready to engage with whatever comes, you know, because it's also, you know, it's serving as a channel for the intelligence of the medicine to move through me, you know, through song, through presence, through action, right? And so yeah, it's kind of like Fia gets out of the way a little bit and lets something else run the show. And so if something happens, then it's less of like a whoa and more of like a boom boom boom, like move right into like action, you know, because there's a lot that's a lot of programs that are running in that moment from the medicine, you know. Um and at the same time, you know, I say this many times, I've said it before, I'll always say it, that like every ceremony is different because there are so many contributing factors. You know, one is the group of individuals that show up and all of the energy that each person brings into that space, you know, because when we open up a ceremony, we lift the veil, you know. And so the spirit world and the energetic world and realm, it becomes palpable and you know, sort of visible in a way. And so, you know, if it's like every group that gathers has a different field of energy, has different things that they're bringing into the space, you know. And then also the, because everything contributes, right? So like the location, the phase of the moon, the space of the planets, where we're at in the seasons, you know, all of these things are contributing to the energy that's created when we open up the portal that is the ceremony. And so it's always different. But then also, you know, if we zoom out, it's like within that, there's like it's a field, you know, and and part of my job is like learning how to navigate that field. You know?
Mm. Wow. And it sounds that doesn't sound like an easy task, quite frankly. So, and I know you do it amazingly because I've experienced it so many times with you,
Mhm.
and I can completely trust in your capacity to do that. And that for me is so sacred and amazing. So
Mm.
thank you.
This is why it takes many years of training and
Yeah,
many years of practice and personal work to be able to do that in a real way, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
100%, and I see that like,
Yeah.
after working with other people as well. So I
Mm.
see that. So, what is your prayer for people who attend your ceremonies?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Well, for me, I think every medicine person is different. Everyone carries their medicine in a different way, and it needs to be that way, right? Because we have to come from many angles and include many ingredients in the pot, right, if you will.
Mm,
And for me personally, you know, my life is really dedicated to this work. And so I don't do anything else. All of my energy and focus is on this work and also me as the instrument and channel, and how to best serve. And so, my highest prayer always, whether it's in the ceremony or every single day when I wake up in the morning, is that people can receive the maximum benefit from this work. People can be liberated, and find peace and healing within themselves, and um, yeah, I guess put simply, that's really it. And it's something that, for me, I embody all the time, all of the time. It's not just in the ceremony, and not necessarily even just the people I work with in the ceremony. It's a life way, really, and um, I think there's a lot of, for my experience has been, there's a lot of like personal development that goes into being able to hold that prayer in truth and integrity.
mm,
Because when you're driving down the highway and somebody cuts you off, if you're like, "Ah," that is not congruent with your prayer for the well-being of all, and so it's really easy to like, leave those kinds of things in like the we're all, whatever excuse we could make about all those things. But for me, the way I've sort of taken that on is like, no, I want to be as integral, as truthful, as transparent with my energy and what I offer and how I, and what energy I emit into this world as possible. And so I'm constantly like, in this process of refinement and just working myself and all my humanness and all my faults and weaknesses and all of these things, because yeah, I've really I've taken that on as my prayer to be of service to others and to be of service to the all, to the harmony and the well-being of all. And so that's what it is for me.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Mm. And so you've said before that humans are deprived of spirit, or this world has created this situation where there is this deprivation of soul or
Mhm.
spirit or connection with the divine. Could you share more about how ayahuasca helps with this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know um like we've been saying, I say this to people a lot. It's like drinking ayahuasca is a highly spiritual experience. So if you don't have any spiritual practice, or if you don't really believe in any higher power or anything like this, you know, it can be pretty shocking when you step into that realm. And yeah, when we are with the medicine and we're under the effect of the medicine, it really does lift the veil. It pierces through into different realities in a sense. Because truthfully, every spiritual culture or any spiritual understanding in this world knows that this world is not all that there is. It's like in the Hindu tradition, the concept of Maya, right? It's like illusion. This 3D world is it's not all that's happening. So when you drink medicine, you become aware of energy, just as one example, in a big way. And again, everybody, psychically, or their sensitivity level is different, so they're going to perceive different things. But it really gives you an opportunity to connect with what is beyond just this world. And um I think that it's not difficult to look at our society and our world in this day and age and see um, the issues, and sort of the sickness and the disconnect that happens, and if we look at what I would call like intact cultures, so people that have a connection to spirituality through their culture still, whether it be, in India, or in, Native American traditions of the North, or anything like this, spirit is not missing, from those intact cultures. And people are, in sort of a general sense, more integral and more well, and because the truth is, everybody knows, like, life is full of difficulty, it's full of challenges, it's full of things that don't make sense and aren't fair, and if we cannot connect to anything that is beyond ourselves, it gets really difficult to deal with those challenges, and that's just one aspect of spirit that is beneficial to us, but I, without a shadow of a doubt, I have an inner knowing in my own being, and I see it move through, these sort of worldviews of these traditions, that, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and so when you drink the medicine, it helps you to taste that. And if you've never in your life before had any experiences with that, it's going to give you an opportunity to wake that up, and sense that a little bit.
Mm. So do you feel like ayahuasca does help their ability then, not only just to feel that they might be spiritual beings having a physical experience, but also their connection with the creator, divine, God?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
feel that?
well, ideally, you
Okay,
know,
okay.
but I think also, like I said, everybody is so different, and sometimes people have like other things to address first, or there's other things that are taking priority over that sometimes, first, and so, like, working through childhood trauma, or different things, like, or sometimes it's even just, like, looking at yourself and your character and how you move through the world, and like assessing that. Sometimes those things are like right there, really, like, super, important and first, but ultimately, I believe that the medicine absolutely does help us. Um, you know, I can speak from my own personal experience, on my own spiritual journey. I used to be, when I was a teenager, I was like an atheist for a while. I grew up like in an Italian Roman Catholic situation, and I was just like, where is God in all of this? I don't even believe in any of it, you know. And so I went from that to now dedicating my life to the service of the supreme being, and so it's sort of just an example of like what's possible when we really open ourselves up to what's possible, in the medicine. And my teacher says it in a really beautiful way of sort of these three main principal things that the medicine does. And one of them is it cleans your body, right? Because many things live in the body, different toxins and different energies and things like this, no? It liberates your energy, because, like I mentioned before, a lot of us have like blockages or stagnation. If we think about like the energy centers of the body, like the chakras, sometimes some of them are like real closed up. The energy can't flow properly through those places, and that affects our experience of life and how we're able to interact with life, and then the third thing that I love how he says it, he says it's the resuscitation of the spirit, because he in his way of seeing things, many people, it's like their spirit is sleeping, They're just moving through life, engaging with just the physical, just whatever catches their eye, whatever is interesting, this, that, and the other, like the material, and where is spirit? Where is the vertical connection? There's a lot of horizontal connection, but where is the connection to these sort of higher dimensions and like this? And so when we're practicing these medicines in sort of that healthy, structured way with direction is how we call it in this tradition. It's medicina con dirección, so it's medicine with direction. So when we engage in that fully, then there is a natural process through cleaning out your body, liberating your energy, ultimately your spirit. It resuscitates. It starts to wake up. This is sort of the process.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I love that description. So, what would you say to someone who feels the call but is also afraid?
Well, it's a double-sided answer, I think, because on one side, I would say you don't have to do it. Don't do it if you're terrified. My God, because we don't. Drinking ayahuasca is not something that you want to approach if you're absolutely terrified to do it. Because there's going to be things that you're going to have to be with that might be uncomfortable or might be kind of challenging, and if the fear is overwhelming, you don't have to do it. And also, there's an understanding that if we want to change and we want to evolve and move through things and, kind of level up in life, we're going to have to kind of get out of our comfort zone, because a lot of what ails us lives in our comfort zone, And so, in a sense, it kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, there is no convincing, but at the same time, it's like, if you got to find that like gumption, you got to find that like calling to understand that, like, sometimes we have to do challenging things to be able to break through, and move into different levels of consciousness and like this. And so tarde o temprano, like sooner or later, if you sit with it, right, it's like some people will decide like, no, I'm not going to do it. And other people, they sit with it and they sit with it. And it's like, all right, I'm nervous, and it's totally normal to be nervous. And it's normal to have some level of fear, right? But there has to be that thing in there that's like, I'm nervous as heck, but I want to do this and I'm going to do it, and that's the moment when it's a yes, when it's time to go, but yeah, just to also acknowledge that, like, it's totally normal to be nervous and to have some level of fear as you step into the great unknown that is this plant medicine world, and I think there is also too where, I think it's really helpful for people to be able to like do a little research, not to say that, like, to drink ayahuasca you have to like research it, because some people, everyone's different with that. Some people like to go in with a lot of information about it. Some people don't want to hear other people's stories and they just want to have their own experience, but at the very least, like, get to know your facilitator, get a sense for who you're going to be working with, get a sense for how things happen, and ask questions, because if you're really afraid, doing that is going to help to settle some of that, because you're going to get a sense for that individual. Like, if you kind of speak directly to the facilitator, I highly recommend that, because you're going to be able to sense their energy, and most people will have a feeling of like, yes, like I can do this with this person. Or if it's like, well, I don't know, then maybe not, so being able to connect, I think, will help an individual that's like really nervous, but wants to do it, make the connection.
Beautiful. That's great
Yeah.
advice. Thank you. So, continuing on with the advice question, then, how would you recommend that people prepare for an ayahuasca ceremony, both practically and spiritually?
Yeah, super important. In again, there's a lot of different traditions with this medicine, and they all have sort of different like recommendations of how to prepare oneself. but I'll speak about the tradition that I'm in, and what I've always learned is important. And, number one is really the physical being, right? And so your diet, because, this medicine, it's a plant that likes a certain environment within the body, because she's a purgative. It's a cleansing medicine. So if your body is super toxified and there's all kinds of stuff in there, you eat really unhealthy, the medicine's going to come in and have to move through all that sludge. And so taking care of your diet, and following the preparation diet is super duper important, and it greatly affects the experience, because if people disregard the preparation diet, the experience can be much more uncomfortable and unpleasant than it needs to be, both physically and also, in the psyche, and all of it affects everything, and so disregarding the diet is not helpful. So follow your dieta, and also, on the sort of more spiritual and energetic side of things, ayahuasca is a medicine that has the potential to show you a lot about yourself. It really, it can take you within. It can show you a lot about a lot of other things too, but it really does have a large capacity to show you what is happening in your own internal kingdom or queendom in there. you know. And so my recommendation is get a head start on that process. Not to say that you need to like sit down and meditate for 3 hours every day. It doesn't have to be this sort of overwhelming thing, but like try to take some time to just be with yourself, or like disconnect from the screen, or take a walk. Go outside and take a walk and just take in nature and things like this, and sort of let yourself be harmonized by nature, or even everybody has their different spiritual practices. So some people um really like to pray and really like to be in like incantation in that space. Anything that sort of nurtures your spirit and helps to harmonize your energy and can kind of get you into that space where the distraction of the world is set aside is very helpful, because you know if we never pay attention to what's going on in here, right? And then you drink ayahuasca, it's like it can be like a circus in there sometimes, or just like an overwhelming amount of thoughts and energies, and then sometimes it can be confusing and like this, and so that would be my recommendation for like the spiritual and energetic preparation, is take some time to center yourself, to be quiet, and yeah, like that. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. So
Mm.
that leads nicely into the next question is how do you feel how important the container is, or the space and the facilitators in terms of when serving the medicine? And I think you've kind of touched on this
Yeah.
already, but I'd like to kind of hone in terms of the facilitator's ability to, energetically protect the space and, and make that feel comfortable for everybody there.
Yeah. It has an enormous effect, because, you know, in a traditional sort of understanding, what happens when somebody opens up a medicine ceremony is the shaman, or the curandera, expands their energy field, right, to cover the field of the ceremony, in a sense. This is something that we learn in this tradition, and so there's a lot to that, right? Number one is like, is the person even aware of that? you know, and then what is the quality of the energy that they're expanding into the space? And how well are they able to sustain that? How much intention and awareness goes in to that? Has a huge effect, and also, yeah, I have talked about this in, I think, a little in this conversation and in others. But you know, when you serve as a channel for these medicines, it's like you become the instrument, right? In a way, it's like because we talk about the plant spirits, right? And they live in plant bodies, right? But they don't have a voice, they don't have hands, they don't have feet, so they can't interact in the world in the same way that a person can. So when you become the channel for the medicines, you give them your voice, you give them your presence, and you give them your ability to take action, right? And so when you are the instrument and when you are the channel, the quality of energy within that individual gets expressed out, whether there are things that are conscious or unconscious, and this is why, it's like, if an individual is facilitating ceremonies and doing this work, and there's a lot of like unresolved stuff in their being, they could be a wonderful person, very kind, and even have the best intention. But when they open themselves as a channel, all of their stuff, in a way, is getting expressed out. And of course, nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's going to be like in perfection. But like we said, this is why, we have to train to do this. And that's why, the refinement and the practice that goes into learning how to properly take care of that kind of space is so very important. Because, a friend of mine many years ago said, it's like, when if somebody like that, is serving medicine, se vuelve un brujo. That's what he said. He said, which means it's like they turn into like a sorcerer or like a dark magician in a way, and not by their intention, but it's just that it's like, to do this work properly, you kind of can't just live like a regular old humdrum life and like do whatever you want and think whatever you, and like, there is a discipline, and there is like an attunement that has to be present if you want to create a safe space and a potent healing container for others. And so, I think these days, there's there's a lot of people that are called to serve, which is beautiful in some aspect, but I think that whole awareness, maybe a lot of people aren't even really aware of that, or they don't even know that like that's necessary or helpful. And they think because they got some icaros, or that they did a dieta or two or something like this, or someone told them that they could serve medicine after 10 ceremonies or something like this, then they think that they're ready, and they think that they're doing the right thing, but it's just, you have to be very, very careful. And yeah, like that. So it's a long-winded answer to your simple question, but it's very important. It's very important, who you work with, because you are stepping into their field. And also, it's like the spiritual connection that the curandero makes within themselves. It's like they channel that energy through into the ceremony, and so, um me personally, if I'm going to drink ayahuasca, I want to drink ayahuasca with someone that's like connected to the divine and can bring that energy through, and like, is firm in that, and so, not everybody is there. So it's like, what are they channeling into the space?
Mm,
Mm.
beautiful. That's a really comprehensive answer, and thank you for that. So I'd like to talk about integration
Yeah.
and integration post ceremony. So you've said before that ayahuasca cleans and opens the door, but you are the one to walk through it. So can you share a little bit more about what you mean about this and how people can actually walk through the door?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what that means is, for example, you might go to a ceremony and you may see some things about yourself that need to change. You know, the medicine is going to clean your energy. She's going to purge you. She's going to straighten you out. She's going to open your perspective. And then she's going to set you out back into your life. You are the one that needs to make the changes that you saw. You are the one that needs to take action on the direction that you were given. It's like we call it like the homework. So sometimes grandmother, as we like to call her, she gives us homework. And that's just one situation. Maybe another thing is like, ooh, you realize that you need to forgive someone. Forgiveness is a hard thing for us, people, and the idea of it is wonderful, but like sometimes when it's time to actually truthfully forgive them, it can be easy to sort of like, you get out of the ceremony, you get back into your home environment, you start like ruminating about things again, and it's easier to just be like, you know that's and when we're in medicine, it's really easy to see like the fact that you're holding resentment is eating away at you. Forgive that person, and it's going to be your own freedom. And it's easier to see that when you're in that space, expansive space of the medicine. But when you get home, it's easier to forget why it's so important to do those things. And so, um, you know, she will, like I said, she'll clean you out, polish you up, set you straight. And then it's up to you to either maintain that and take heed to what you saw and what you understood and start to apply it in your life or not. And I also want to mention with this that, like, I can speak from personal experience, like it's not easy all of the time to like fulfill totally all of the things that you see in ceremony. And it's also not helpful to be super hard on yourself if you're not able to fully do all the things, because one thing that ayahuasca is so good at showing us is that, like, your state of mind and your energy determines so much about your experience of life. And so if you were given this gift to like have a realization about something that you need to work on or change from ceremony, but then you get all worked up about not doing it, you're moving yourself in the other direction. You're not helping yourself by being all strung out about not doing it, right? Because there's also an understanding that, like, with a lot of these things, oftentimes the realization will come into the mind before the truth is actually embodied. And what that means is, like, we get it, we realize, we understand, and we know, but we're not fully able to embody it yet. So you have to be patient and you have to stay committed to the process and sort of disciplined in that, but also be easeful with yourself. It's a dance, between all of these things. But, integrating is everything, because otherwise it's like we have these experiences and then what? It's like, it's almost like a dream that you had, or just something that you did, and you saw a bunch of things and you felt a bunch of things and realized a bunch, and then you go right back to the same thing in life, and then it's like, well, what did you do all that for? And so the integration is really what makes a difference between being able to make real change in your life, that, because I think that's a lot of what calls people to this work, is they want to change, they want to evolve, they want to grow, they want to heal, and so um staying with that outside of the ceremony is really what makes all of that happen. And also, integration support can be really good sometimes too. It's something that I offer to everyone that I work with if they feel like they need it at any point. And also, just to say, like, if if you do feel called to have integration support, make sure that it's someone that's properly able to guide you through that, not just anybody that says they will, because it's a delicate thing, but yeah, it can be helpful because it really is so very easy to get back out into life and slip right back into the same old cycles, because on a physiological level, like in the brain, our neural pathways get ingrained, and the more we think a certain thought, the more we take certain action, it gets easier to do that over and over again. Changing something for the better is very difficult at first. It takes practice, and sometimes it's helpful to have someone there to sort of like, for accountability and support and guidance and all of that. So, but I think the most important ingredient in all of that is just really the recognition of the importance and the dedication to doing it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what would you say, because, sometimes there are direct things that, ayahuasca shows you, and it's just like, yep, I need to do this, and, and I need to follow through on that. And so there's that aspect. And sometimes, we get shown really beautiful, amazing things. And some things are really, really difficult sometimes in ceremonies. And how would you say for people, like you did mention in terms of integration support and, maybe having a conversation with you or doing something like that, is there anything else that people can do if they've had a potentially tough experience?
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is a good moment maybe to mention that, just in case some folks aren't aware of this, not everything that we see in ayahuasca is to be taken literally, you know. I could give a quick example. It's like there was a woman who went into a really difficult process where she saw a bunch of dead animals, and it was awful for her and traumatizing. And she came out like, "What the hell? I don't understand. Why did I have to see that? How is that helping me, etc." And this is the moment where it's helpful to talk about those things with your guide, because they can help you to sort of decipher and understand. And ultimately what we came the understanding that we came to with this woman is that, because she shared a little bit more, that she is deeply affected by violence against animals and things like this. And so that came up as a symbol for her, and it was a symbol of the hurt parts in her that were need. It was sort of the gatekeeper for like moving into this really hurt place in her, and so things like that, where it's like it can be really cryptic sometimes. And so, if you have a really difficult journey and more on the side of like none of it makes sense, you don't have to mine for meanings. You don't have to dig for meanings. Sometimes, um, well, I can just say there's a certain orientation of thought that's really helpful when we're working with these kinds of plants. And that is, I am not going to understand fully everything on this path all of the time. I trust deeply that everything that comes up when I'm in a safe container is ultimately for my highest good, and it's a part of my healing. So when you're oriented in that way, whatever's coming, you're able to sort of stay oriented in that process, and if needed, if somebody has a really difficult journey, which is part of healing. Sometimes, I think it gets really easy for the ego to come in there and start to like demonize the medicine because somebody had a hard time, and it's like, guess what? Having a hard time sometimes, if you're in a safe container, it gets hard sometimes because we have to face the difficulty, right? And so, if somebody has that kind of experience, ask for support, ask for support, because yeah, the support is going to help you to sort of, because these things take time. They take time to settle in. And it's like if you're going through a storm and there's all this dust flying around, you can't see clearly. You don't know what's up and what's down and where everything is. It takes time for the dust to settle. It takes time for the meanings to surface, and you can do that on your own by all means if you feel called to. But if you're really struggling, then ask for support, and be patient and trust the process. Don't lose that orientation, because when people start to like then doubt the whole process and like this, that just gets even more challenging, in a way, because there's an inability to be with what's coming up, and ultimately what's coming up is for your liberation. Because sometimes in ayahuasca, it's like we have to see things as we're releasing them. We have to feel certain things as we are purging them from our field, and so if you just reject that whole process, you're missing a huge opportunity for your ultimate liberation and expansion and growth.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you.
Mm.
And what would you say are the first few things people should do after a ceremony?
Like right after?
Mm.
Oh, good. Yeah, this is easy. um, we say that drinking plant medicine, it really is like spiritual surgery sometimes. You get in there and you're working on like the circuit board of your being. And what comes after surgery? Recovery. And so the most important thing to do right after a ceremony is make sure that you're properly hydrated, make sure that you have a good meal, the body is nourished, and rest. Don't like do too much, because everything that you have just, it's like you just got in there and stirred the pot, you know. Things need to settle, and the brain processes so much sometimes in these. There's so much information and input of energy coming in. The brain actually needs to rest afterwards. It's super, super important. And so, my ideal recommendation for people right after ceremony is like, if it could be the perfect thing, it would be have a nice meal, take a shower, drink some coconut water, go to sleep, wake up, go sit out in nature, have another meal, lay back down, light a candle, listen to soft music, just let yourself be. Something that you don't want to do is like have to go to work the next day, or have some like responsibility, or like have like a birthday party or something, or something like that. It's just too much. It becomes taxing on the body, and it also sort of disconnects you from, because in those first 24 hours after ceremony, there's a lot that starts to come through if you make the space for it. So there's kind of an opportunity there for like, things to continue. And I think something that sometimes people can slip into really easily is the processing with another, which a little bit of that can be great. If you were at ceremony with a friend, like talking about a little bit, but you want to just be mindful that it's not too much, because then you sort of do like zrrr, it goes, it's too much, And then in the days following, there's lots of good time for processing. But coming right out of ceremony, those would be my recommendation. That's what I do.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Hmm.
So, what would you say is the biggest gift ayahuasca has given you personally?
Ooh. Oh my God. How could I pick one? Oh, I guess if I had to pick one thing, it would be, I mean, aside from just the immense amount of healing, that I've experienced, she has given me the gift of myself, of like getting to know myself and allowing the truth of who I am to be expressed in the world. It's a huge gift. And also, I'm very, very, very grateful to have a connection to my creator now, to my source, and to, like, I say this often, it's like, when you're on the spiritual path, sooner or later, you're going to have to confront death, right? It's the primordial fear. Like, it's this thing, and, I'm not afraid to die anymore, because I spend so much time in these other places, and I feel like I know where I'm going. I mean, I can never know it all, right? But like, I know my creator, and I have trust, and I have a connection to what is beyond this world. And that is an immense blessing, to walk through life in that way, and to have the opportunity to feel connected, to life and to earth, the magnificence of the natural world, and there's so many things in all of it, but I guess that's some of what I could say. Yeah.
It's beautiful. So,
Mm.
then what would you say that you've witnessed in terms of the biggest gift ayahuasca has given other people?
Mm. You know, I would say the gifts are as unique as every individual that comes in, because sometimes, like, I just worked with a woman, last summer, that went through something awful, really traumatic as a child that no child or any person should ever have to go through. And in 2 weekends, she made a tremendous, amount of progress of freeing herself from the torment of that experience. Ultimately, if we zoom out, right, it would be sort of similar to, it's the same kind of thing, it's like people return to themselves and they find peace, and they're able to be joyful, and do hard things, and just engage with life in a more full way. There's so many blessings that come.
That's beautiful. Thank
Hmm.
you for that. And so, the final thing I would like to ask is whether you might like to share a prayer for people who are listening, or any last words that you would like to
Hmm.
share about your experience, or anything for anyone who's listening today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Um, well, first, thank you, Sunny. Thank you so much for opening up this space and for being such a dear friend, and also your, your service, that you offer to everyone, through the good work that you do. And I think I would just end, with a prayer, for everyone, that we can learn how to dance with life instead of against it. That we can learn how to lean in to difficult things that are for our ultimate benefit. You know, to find that courage and to remember that life is a gift, no matter how hard it gets. And to be able to expand through the joy and through the beauty. Sometimes that's hiding right in plain sight, right in the simple things. That's just a sort of, I guess, simple prayer that I would like to leave it with. Is that we can become friends with this experience, no matter what happens. Because um, yeah, our perspective determines so much, and if there's one thing I've learned in this work is that perspectives can open. And when they open, anything becomes possible. Whatever you dream can become possible, when you orient yourself that way. So I'll finish with that. And prayers for the highest blessings for each person listening to this, and may life be good to you, and may you be good to yourself. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Fia. And yeah, I really appreciate, and I'm sure everyone listening really appreciates your incredible wisdom and knowledge and depth
Mhm.
of work. It's so evident, and it's such a blessing. So thank you. And
Thank
if
you
you'd like
so
to connect with Fia's work, I'm going to put her links below here so you can connect with where she is and what she's doing and what ceremonies. And if you're more interested, you can connect with her directly. I'll also leave the links of the retreats that I do with Fia as well. And yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for sharing in this experience, and to keep the conversation going, and to walk gently, and live bravely, and yeah, experience all that life has to offer. And it's amazing, and all the amazing.
much.
So thank
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.